that conversation. So before we really break down a little bit more about the jury and the decision from that, we have to remember that there is a family here mourning. And 2023, 2 years ago, we're seeing they're sitting in courtrooms 2 years later, hoping to get the justice for Tyre Nichols. And I just want your thoughts about Rovon Wells, Rodney, and just the family, the Nichols family, and how they're grasping with this verdict.
Well, it has to be a gut punch for them. I mean, we've seen Rovon Wells now, as you say, for actually 2.5 years now. We've watched her, we've seen her facial expressions, we've seen her dignity, we've seen how she spoke in public, we've seen how she reacted through every step of the way, whether it was the federal case and now the state case. She has shown nothing but grace and dignity, and so has Rodney Wells, her husband. But this is a grieving family. They're still grieving. You would be if you lost of a child, especially under these circumstances. So we have to understand that. But all along the way, they have said, we want to make sure that things are done the right way. We do want justice for Tyre, but we're going to do it within the confines of the law. And I'm sure they are at home now in their private space, devastated, because I think they thought that even if the 3 officers who went to state trial did not get convicted of the murder charges, they surely would have been convicted of some of the lesser charges. I'm sure they're thinking about that. So it has to be a gut punch for them as they try to absorb what happened today down in the criminal court.
Her strength, I can only just imagine how strong she has to be right now. I had conversations with people just about the length of all of this and where Rovon might be standing with the first time being confronted with those 3 men, or all 5 really, and then eventually the 3 on trial. So how do you just put into words about the time we saw where C.J. Davis and Mayor Young were standing up with her in press conferences, and then we saw the civil suit come down against the city, with the Nichols family against the city, and just how the relationships, the nature of how this has kind of ebbed and flowed throughout the entire 2.5 years from the beginning to now with Rovon and the city of Memphis, where it's whether that's Mayor Young and C.J. Davis, to even having to deal with seeing those 5 officers, but the 3 time and time again. I guess, is there a sense of just acceptance? I mean, obviously justice, you still want justice, but to be able to stand in front of all these people all this time, how do you feel that relationship works its way through? Well,
that's a great question, and I do believe that when you talk about Mayor C.J. Davis, for example, she was praised at the beginning of this case for her forthrightness, the fact that the officers were fired right away. She came out and made a lot of public statements. They rushed to get the video out into the public. I remember us staying here like 5 or 6 hours watching it and then going on the air. So, I mean, she was praised not just by local people, but by the national media for how she handled this. But you have to believe that the civil lawsuit, which is a massive lawsuit in terms of the damages that the family is seeking, obviously that had to put a little bit of a distance between the family and the city as they go through that process, because now they're at adversarial ends of the spectrum. So it can't be the same way it was initially when Chief Davis was being very forthright about how these officers, violated procedure. That was not what they were trained to do. That's not what they were supposed to do. They were fired immediately and all of that. So yeah, I mean, there's an obvious strain here as it relates to Mayor Young. He was not the mayor when it happened, I believe. If it was January 2023. Yeah, he was elected in October of 2023. But since then, I thought he has handled the case the way you would expect a mayor to handle it, in terms of, making sure that the police department does respond to the allegations that, for example, were leveled by the Department of Justice. Even though he said he's not going to do a consent decree, he assured us that he's going to address these charges. I just don't think right now there's any kind of a relationship or any kind of bonding, obviously, between the police, the city, and the family. It just can't be, not with the circumstances that we have now.
Right, and I know the two are separate, the state trial and the civil case with the $500 million on the table, but I can't imagine that the verdict from today won't just make Tyre Nichols' family and the attorney Ben Crump use that to get justice in the civil case at all.
Well, I mean, I think, and I don't know the extent to which that verdict or these verdicts today will show up in the civil case. I do believe that you will have more proof and more testimony in that civil case about the policies and procedures, things that we did not have in this criminal case, because that goes to the culpability of the police department and it goes to the culpability of the city as a whole. They violated policy. They deprived this man of his life and liberty in pursuit of happiness. And so you will hear a lot more testimony, I believe, in the civil trial about policies and procedures, far more than you heard in this case, because we really didn't hear much of that at all.
Yes. Now let's take it back to the jury makeup, and I wish I would have maybe even asked this with Pastor Fisher here, but we talk about race being played here. So the Chattanooga area, and we heard Lauren say it was the jury was made up of 8 women, 4 men that were all white passing. But we are talking about a case here that is different than other police brutality cases in the nature of the cops also being black along with the victim.
Right.
So when you have, let's say that, you know, what you and Pastor Fisher say, that the jury being from a demographic of mostly white people, is it interesting to think of how they would perceive black cops as opposed to other police brutality cases where it's white cops against a black victim?
Well, we're really getting into a deep discussion, as we should here. Because you're right. First of all, this is not the typical Derek Chauvin case, for example, where you have white cops and an African American defendant. This is not some of the other, Rodney King and even here in Memphis with Elton Hayes and things. You don't have that here, but you still have the culture, and the culture historically of Memphis police. In some respects, has been oppressive to African American citizens. That's just a fact. I mean, we've had one consent decree in the past that dealt with, running roughshod over citizens who were African Americans or people of color. The fact that you had a jury from Chattanooga, and I don't know any of these folks, and I'm sure they are well-meaning citizens. They wouldn't have been picked for a jury if they were not. But they did not bring the cultural understanding of what Memphis is about when it comes to police and community relations. That played positively for the defense in this case. So again, as I said a few minutes ago when Pastor Fisher was here, it would have been incumbent then on the prosecution to cut through that and help this jury understand that even though everybody involved here was the same race, there's a culture here. There's a belief system here that no matter whether you're an African American or a white officer, when you violate policy, you violate policy. And that's what happened here, no matter what race the police officer was. But obviously, this, to me, was a police-friendly jury. Didn't matter whether the race of the police officers, and the prosecution failed to cut through that with enough evidence to at least get some of these charges across the guilty verdict line.
And so police reform, there have been calls especially since Tyre Nichols' case. So over the last 2 years, I feel like we would be remiss to not talk about some of the steps that the city and MPD has taken or have taken to to reform a little bit. So I know that the Downtown Command Center, when we talk about cameras, okay, cameras were a big part of this case. The Downtown Command Center just opened up. It's robust, more cameras around the city, AI technology, all of this. What do you think about the efforts since we saw the video come out and what's happened and the calls for it and the demands and the progress being made to make sure police, we don't fall into the same patterns and practices that have been proven to disenfranchise our people?
Well, I think for the most part, Pepper, all of the new technology that has been unveiled, and especially recently with the Downtown Command Center, all of that is for adequate policing to nab the bad people and to show the community, which this community is still upset about the level of crime in the community. And so all of that is to show the community that we are doing a much more aggressive job of keeping you safe as you go downtown, as you go about your business. I didn't get the impression that it was that much to the point of making sure that the cops don't beat you up and do you like Tyre Nichols. Now, that could be part of it, but I just don't see that as being the major thrust of all of the new technology and the command centers and the real-time stuff that's going on. That's more to keep the rest of the public safe. Again, I just think that it is going to be now up to Police Chief C.J. Davis, and I haven't heard any statement that she's made as a result of the guilty verdicts today. It'll be up to Mayor Paul Young to come out and assure Memphians that despite this verdict, we are still committed to making sure that the police treat citizens with respect and dignity, and we're going to do everything in our power to make sure that that continues. We have this committee chaired by former Judge Bernice Donald, and with some great people on it. They are looking at policies and procedures. They will make some recommendations. They're not an enforcement group, but they'll make some recommendations. We are committed to listening to what they have to say, and we are committed to making sure that the public feels that they can trust the police to protect and serve and not beat you up.
And if they can do that, I see that as a light at the end of the tunnel.
Well, if they can do it. The question is, will the people believe it? And this verdict is setting that belief back just a little bit.
I want to ask about recruitment too, because not only the people's trust, but does this have an effect on how to get officers to join MPD's force?
Oh, I think so. As a matter of fact, I was having some conversations a week or so ago with some people, and they were saying, well, if the officers came back guilty, that was going to hurt morale, recruitment, and retention. But I think even the acquittals are going to hurt, especially recruitment and retention, because if we see what I expect that we will see, that the community will say, I just don't trust the police officers. I just don't trust the police department. They'll beat me up and think that they can get away with it. That's not a good atmosphere in order to recruit and bring people into the department. I've seen some commercials on television where they're trying to recruit more officers, but we'll see where that lands. But with the public, I believe, and again, this is a non-militant community when it comes to rising up, so I don't think you're going to have any problems with that. But I do think you're going to have people who will say, this is just another example of why I can't trust the police department.
So we have a couple lasting minutes here, and I just think that when we talk about what justice looks like, so in the coming years, I know when I used to work in St. Louis, Mike Brown has an anniversary where they go back to the very place that he was shot. How do you think Memphians will honor Tyre if they did not feel that justice was served today? Oh,
I think Tyre will still get the attention and the recognition, the honor that he has been getting. I believe that every January, probably, I think this happened on the 7th of January, 2023. I think you're going to have people either doing roller skate exercises or doing something, maybe a gathering on the river or whatever they could do to remember Tyre Nichols. Even though the defense in this trial attempted to besmirch his reputation a bit, I don't think that's going to do anything to taint his memory. Because when we look at what happened here, no matter what Tyre Nichols had in his trunk or didn't have in his trunk, he did not deserve to die. And there was no reason for him to be treated the way he was treated that night. And it is just a shame that the family didn't get the justice that they think that they deserved here, because at the end, we still have a young man, 29 years old, who is dead as a result of something that should never have happened. So I think people will remember him, they will honor him going forward, I think every year or whenever the opportunity arises.
Are you shocked to see the jury take the time they did? A couple of days. Were you shocked to see that, or was that a pretty fair amount of time?
No, I thought that was a pretty fair amount of time. I was expecting it to go a little longer. Matter of fact, that's why I wasn't here when the very beginning of the day. I was doing something else. But again, it would be helpful. And we used to do this back in the day, Pepper, when I covered the courts. We had an opportunity to talk to jurors almost immediately. I was talking to jurors that afternoon if a verdict came down. And I'm talking about federal juries and state juries. And you don't get that opportunity too much anymore, just because people want their privacy a little bit more. But I think over time, hopefully enterprising reporters will track down some of these jurors, and I'd like to get their take on it. But it's, I think the appropriate amount of time was taken. I'm just not sure that they had enough evidence in front of them to satisfy what the prosecution was trying to do.
Okay.